with him from the very beginning. Starting his journey as a children's entertainer, he was DJing across the UK and Europe by the age of 16. Toby has collaborated with well-known companies, agencies, and venues, gaining a wealth of knowledge that ensures every event is extraordinary. His dedication to creating innovative and engaging experiences for diverse audiences using state-of-the-art equipment and technology is truly inspiring. Toby, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Toby, could you start by sharing what inspired you to enter the event industry and what drove you to transition from being a children's entertainer to this industry?
The main contributing factors is my brother was actually a children's entertainer when I was much younger. So I'd seen him go out, I'd seen him earn very, very good money, and he had a group of friends who were always at our house that were all children's entertainers and DJs. And I saw what they were doing. A couple of them had bought quite a few properties at a young age. And I always loved DJing. Even at school, I was doing school productions and all the tech and that side of it I loved doing. So it was a natural progression, actually, that I think I went into the children's entertainment first of all and was doing, in the end, maybe 10 parties a week, something like that, entertaining children. And it was like, back then it was fantastic money. You'd get 200, 250 pounds a party. You know, you're doing 10 a week. You can do the maths. It was great money. But you are swapping time for a job. And it was very, very unsociable. So my whole weekends, you're not with your friends, you're not with your family, you're out on the road, one party to another. And I did that for a number of years until I thought this isn't sustainable as a business that works without me in it. And then there were some natural progressions to the next step of my career.
So what specific moment or event convinced you that transitioning into event entrepreneurship was the right path for you?
So I was doing the children's entertaining. Then I did a lot of DJ work, and I was in a very specific market of like corporate or religious events where they used to spend quite a lot on their event. And there was a moment where I think the penny dropped at that point, and I was already doing bits and bobs on the side, some property and stuff like that. But I actually, on a Thursday night, I remember it very clearly, I used to play five-a-side football. And that night I broke my wrist playing football, fell over, landed on my wrist. And I remember going to the hospital that night and I said to the doctor, I was like, he said it's broken. And I said, look, you cannot put me in a cast tonight. I was like, I've got to DJ at the weekend. So I was like, put me in some sort of brace or something. And on the Monday, I promise you I'll come back and you can put me in a cast. And that's exactly what I did. So I DJ'd the weekend, and then I just thought, if I get injured like that, or if I break a leg next time, I actually didn't play football after that, really, because it cost me a lot of money. But, it's key man driven. And I wanted to build a team and a company, a number of companies around me that if I didn't need to work, I didn't have to. And that was really one of the contributing factors that led me to really give some of that up and focus all my energy on the silent disco company and subsequently the other brands that we've launched since then.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolute that key man strategy, I think, or that key man, not to sound disparaging to anybody, but a trap can really be a risk factor. So, it's interesting to hear that you recognize that really early on. And too bad it only cost your wrist and your football career. You could have been up with Beckham if you had not done that. So, look, the early stages of any business are fraught with challenges. Specifically, what were some of the logistical and strategic hurdles you encountered when you first established your company? And how did you navigate those obstacles?
So for me, it was actually quite simple. In terms of when we launched the silent disco company, I had seen it in the States originally. It was done on a more budget-friendly option, and I knew that the clients that I had in the UK would love it. So with any business, I say test the market before you've invested the money, in my opinion. So I had all these events booked in, and I basically sold them silent disco before we had even ordered any headphones. So basically we had pre-orders 3 months before the kit came in. I think the logistical element at that point was importing from China. And now there isn't anything in my warehouse that really doesn't come direct from China. I don't have distributors in the UK, anything like that. We go straight to the factory. We get samples. I may go out to China and meet the factory, and we do that every single year now where we go to China. But I think that was an element of risk. You know, you've seen a sample. China, they're not easy to deal with always. Some factories are much better than others now, and I've learnt that over the years to pick good factories. But essentially I'm putting a load of money into a foreign bank account in China, and then I've got a shipping agent to get it here, but there's so many elements of risk along the way. It's calculated risk, but even the shipping company, you know, do you want insurance in case the container falls off the ship? I mean, what do you mean? Like, that happens? Or a wave crashes against the ship and you'd be surprised this container, you know, is dented like a pancake. And I've seen pictures of it. So there was that, which I really had to navigate on. Is this going to work? Research, speaking to people. That's the main thing. And I referenced earlier, my brother had a lot of friends that, you know, one of them now is has a £40 million turnover business in the event space. So reach out to people, speak to them. How did they do it? Do they have a recommendation for the company that they're importing with? And I think that's really important for entrepreneurs now. Like I've said it numerous times on other channels, is don't speak to your accountant about these things, or even your wife. Speak to people that have done it, been there, got the t-shirt. And that's something I'd still do today. I did it only last week. I reached out to someone. There was an opportunity that was presented to me, and I said, look, what do you think? You've been there, you've done it. And you'd be surprised, like, entrepreneurs want to help other entrepreneurs. It's not cutthroat where, I don't want to tell you all my secrets, or I don't want to do it because I actually want to get that deal. Entrepreneurs do want to help other entrepreneurs, and there's this great network now where I would certainly give my time to anyone that's starting out, because why let them make all those mistakes if you can just say, here, navigate around this way and don't make those mistakes. And just
you're absolutely right. You know, I think, you know, certainly the event industry is a tight-knit family, if I can use that term, and I think there's an outward perception that, as you said, people don't want to share because they're worried about, you know, losing a bit of business, or you know, they're afraid of that. But the best successes that we have seen as an industry over the last few years is when that peer-to-peer mentoring happens, and that knowledge sharing, so that, you know, the event industry grows. So I agree with you completely.
You share ideas, what work. I always believe there's enough work for everybody. If you're unique, you don't copy someone else's brand and everything they do. Be unique. There's enough work for everybody. And you know, I'm friendly with lots of other competitors in the market, and I'd rather be friendly with them, because if they ever want to exit their business, I want to be the first person they think of as a buyer. So I try and be friendly, but that doesn't always go both ways. And I remember I was with, when was this? April time. I went to Barcelona to another trade show. And I saw a company that have a very similar product to one of our other brands, and I know of them, they know of us. And I tried to chat with him and go, look, what are you struggling with at the moment? It might be something that we're doing really well at, and we can share knowledge. And they were just like a closed book, didn't want to talk. And I think that's a shame, because they may have a struggle that we've overcome. I can share that knowledge. They then overcome it. They work in a slightly different geozone to us. But yeah, some are very, very closed off. And I reference trade shows as well. And I implore anybody, go to trade shows. I did a lot in the States, and the States always seem to be a year ahead of the UK in terms of technology or new ideas. We went to Barcelona in April. Okay, we didn't find anything. We didn't really, learn anything that new. But you got to go. You got to put yourself out. And it's a great investment that when we go to China, obviously it costs a fair amount to go out to China. But what that will save me over 5 years is invaluable. You got to go. You got to go to these trade shows. And I think when you do meet other entrepreneurs, they give you, a lot of knowledge. And I think knowledge is wealth in this day and age. The better knowledge you have, the more successful you'll be. And I think the knowledge from other entrepreneurs is like gold dust.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the customer experience. So customer experience is pretty central to the event industry. Is there any unique strategy you've developed to ensure exceptional service delivery at an event, either for your product or just in general? And do you have like a memorable instance where that customer service turned into a challenging situation turned a challenging situation into a success story?
I think every single week we have a situation which turns into a success story. And I think customer experience is all down to brand. And my experience over the years is I like personally, and to give to my customers, old-fashioned customer service. If I'm on live chat, I don't want to be speaking to a robot. I want to be speaking to a person, because otherwise you just get generic answers, you get frustrated and you can't get the answer you want. You've got live chat. Or if you call, I don't want 10 different layers of options to choose from before I speak to someone. So I believe our success is on simplicity in terms of customer service. If you pick up the phone, you get through to someone. There's always someone available. Likewise, at the weekends when your office is normally closed, we have a 24-hour technical support number. You don't see that in many companies. We know our competitors also, only man that up to a certain time, and we are genuinely 24 hours. And when I said about challenges every week, we're dealing with third-party companies in terms of we ship most of our equipment out with a courier. That's the model we have. That's allowed us to scale to the degree that we have, that we don't need to put men in vans. We let third parties with a huge network do that. So unfortunately, our couriers are third party and they do let you down. I'm sure we've had a case today in the office where a delivery should have been delivered today. It's their wedding tomorrow, for example. And the delivery's failed. The driver couldn't find it. The driver couldn't locate anybody. So then we have a challenge to make sure that event goes ahead. And it's unbelievable how many calls we have every single week of customers that have been let down elsewhere, where maybe they don't have the stock to send out another order. Maybe they don't have the resources to send out a same-day courier there and then. Even if it costs us money to do so, we do not want a wedding to be spoiled because they haven't got their equipment for their event. So every single week, there are challenges with deliveries and collections, trying to get stuff back so we can get it sent back out. We have a very short turnaround. And we have a team, we have a procedure in place to make sure that nobody goes without. And as I said, maybe we'll send it out on a same-day courier, or we'll send it out again on a more premium service to make sure they have it for 9 a.m. tomorrow morning in time for their wedding. But I think that is the secret to success, is old-fashioned customer service where the customer is number one. My team are brilliant and I always have my team's back and the manager has their back. But customers are number one. We don't want anyone going without. And I think that's reflected in the amount, I think it's over 1,100, 1,200 reviews on Facebook or Google. I don't know the split, but you see every single week another 10 reviews, another 20 reviews of people of saying how good the service is. And that's something that we work so hard on. Our management really work hard on it. in every part of the business. And I think that's culture at the end of the day. If you have a really good culture where customer service is priority, everything should be clean. And it's hard when you're dealing with the quantities that we're dealing with. It's hard to keep up that quality control at every point. And that's the challenge I have with my team, to make sure we maintain that high standard.
So, you spoke about some sort of social events in that market, I saw a recent post that you were setting up a VIP party at Crystal Maze Experience with some celebrity DJs for 70 odd guests. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how the silent disco product works in more of the B2B market, and where there's opportunity to utilize that as an experience augmentation for their audiences?
So when using the headphones, there is such a wide variety of uses, and it still surprised me when we get a call with an inquiry and we go, I haven't heard that one before. I had one about 6 months ago where they wanted to do the first silent disco in the sky on an aeroplane for quite a wealthy client. And we looked at it in more detail and thought, okay, the frequency of what we're using, is it going to interfere with any of the plane systems? But you do get some wild inquiries.
Yeah, if I can't use my cell phone, why
exactly.
Could I use that?
So there are some challenges. We're working on a different method, but hopefully we will bring the first silent disco in the skies to our social channels. But using the B2B market, we do a lot of conferences with our headphones where there's different breakout rooms. You're in a loud exhibition hall, someone's doing a product demo. There's the headphones are the perfect use for that. The event we did, I think, a week or two ago, I'm glad you're checking the social media. I hope you're following and subscribe there. But that was, we were asked, it was a brand activation, essentially, for the Crystal Maze Experience in London. And they had been doing some different events every night that week. But they wanted to do a rave in the maze with silent disco. So they brought us in really as a brand activation. They actually sold tickets, but they were free. There was a lot of influencers that they brought in themselves, and they gave us the brief of what they wanted to do, what sort of DJ they wanted in terms of budget, and we'd worked with this DJ before, or this celebrity. She'd actually used us for her daughter's party once for silent disco. Great DJ. So we reached out to their team, and literally it was only about an hour and a half because it was all for media. And they brought in the guests, we put in all the production, we do all of that, not just dry hire of equipment, so we put in all the production. And that was all filmed, pictured, the press were there, just really to raise the profile of the venue.
Okay, so then in the consideration of the B2B market, I think a lot of event planners and producers, because I get a call about it all the time. I have to admit that, the client will call and say, well, can we do some kind of silent disco for our massive breakout rooms all across this show floor? Because, we're limited on space. There's a tendency in the industry now to not only create exhibit space, but exhibit/programming space so that it's all in one sort of four walls, as it were. But then, of course, you get that challenge of sound bleed and booths overpowering each other. So what kind of logistics and technical aspects do you think event professionals need to consider if they're considering something like this as a solution to creative problem solve for that kind of a design aspect?
So you're absolutely right. It is the solution to a lot of these problems, and sound spill is probably one. And that is just too loud in the room. You got all these breakouts with speakers. This isn't me giving a sales pitch, but generally when people come to us, we will take care of all the logistics, all the technical from start to finish of that event. So we'll have staffing there. But I think the logistics is obviously handing out and collecting the headphones. When you've got an event space like the Ray in Amsterdam, Paris Expo, we do a lot at, we're there next week, the Excel in London, big exhibition halls. One of the issues is, you got 5,000 people in there. You can't lose headphones because the client will be charged. So we have a really good sort of check-in and out system. We might have certain sections which are barriered off, and we'll look at the flow if they're going into different areas. We could also, on some of our headphones, we can have up to 6 channels. So we can have it where they change as they go into each area if they are to do that. That's a really good way of doing it. There's branding opportunities on the headphones. In terms of technical, one thing that we really have to look out for is frequency clashes, because in these expo halls, if you've got 100 stands, they're going to have radio mics, they're going to have different technicals all using RF. Usually they will have an RF controller who knows what everyone's frequency is on, but that's not always the case. So we need to be flexible on the day to work with those other producers to make sure that there's no interference, that it's crystal clear. And I think that's what differentiates us from others as well. And we even go into, I know it's diversing from silent disco a bit, but we do a lot of the outdoor drive-in cinemas. And again, that would cause problems with headphones in vehicles and stuff like that. So we developed a almost like a radio station that people can tune into. And then people can listen directly through their cars or vehicles as well, and that works really, really well. So there's lots of tech out there, but we really do work with the client. To figure out the best possible solution for their particular event.
Absolutely. I think there, as I said, there's this desire, especially in the industry, to sort of think of new formats and interesting ways of delivering content, especially in the B2B market. The stand and deliver is becoming a little bit staid, as organizers are trying to create more value for attendees to come to an event. One of the biggest things that a lot of event organizers are trying to do is, as I said, sort of blow up those traditional formats and try to integrate tech in interesting ways. I really like the sort of technical considerations that you mentioned, because I think event professionals sometimes say, oh, it'd be cool to do silent disco. Let's just get a bunch of headsets and that's it. But there's a lot more thought process that goes into that, from the RF to the power requirements to the how many people are you going to need and how many alcohol wipes are you going to need to make sure that you can turn over those headsets in an appropriate time between the person walking in and walking out. Right. So, is there like a one overarching sort of thought process that you think event professionals should consider when trying to figure out new formats like this?
I think literally you've just mentioned the process of what we go through. And I think the cleaning is something that, post-COVID, that's something we're really hot on. And I think one of the other considerations is, okay, if we do 2,500 headphones across 5 breakouts, and it's a 3-day event, the logistics of charging 2,500 headphones on site has to be thought about, because that's hours of work once we've finished to turn around all those headphones to be charged. I did a really interesting event for a bank about a year ago, and it was all about fraud, and it was a really immersive experience. They wanted a particular colour on the headphones, and people walked around and there were different actors. And that was very immersive using the use of the headphones. And I also think one of our other products, which has been integral in terms of thinking outside the box and bringing tech into events, is the flashband product that we do, which is like the light up wristbands. You would have seen it. Taylor Swift concert. Everyone in the crowd has got the light up wristbands. But for B2B, this is a fantastic way of interacting with the audience. And I give an example of that. We do a lot of like award ceremonies, and they want to pick 5 people at random to win a prize out the crowd. So they've all got these bands, obviously they're lighting up, and then all of a sudden like 5 turn green instead of red, and they're the winners of the whatever prize they're giving. Likewise, if they want people to go to different breakouts, okay, group 1, if they light up yellow, you need to go to the yellow breakout. If you light up red, you need to go to the 3rd breakout. So it's integrating that tech that it's a wearable, it's consumable, you can take it home, there's branding opportunities. So bringing tech into these sort of events, I think, is just being different. And in terms of new products, as I mentioned before, I'm going to China again. There's a couple of other expos that I'd like to do in abroad, that we're always looking for that next thing that's going to be different and bring technology into our event space that's not astronomical, because we're very much like, we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive. We want something that anybody could afford, really, in the event space. And that's what we're going to be looking at every trade show we go to, is just to innovate. And the entrepreneur I referenced earlier always says, if you don't innovate, you're going to evaporate, because someone will innovate before you. And that's, again, part of our culture here. And I think it should be in the culture of every event company, that you have to innovate. If not, you'll be left behind and evaporate, because others will.
Yeah, I'm going to tie that back into the differentiation that in the sort of competitive collaboration model that we spoke about earlier in the episode. That whatever technology it is, whether it's wristbands or silent disco headphones or video technology or lights or sound, right? If you don't have a journey and a story being the first thing that helps to reinforce, and I'll jump on your example of the attendee journey from being in a big general session room, wearing this thing on their wrist that is branded, is a keepsake, is something memorable that they can take with them when they leave. But it's also helping you with a logistics problem of, which breakout room do they need to go to? Like, did they win a prize? Whatever that is. If we start with the intent, right, then and what that audience member is going to experience throughout that journey, then that helps us differentiate it from just being, well, we put it in the room, right? Yeah. And that's when you're talking about the competitive nature and people not wanting to share that thing. I feel like those are the people in this industry, perhaps, who are concentrating on the product and what it functionally does versus what that product can do to differentiate the event and that service level and that experience. It's a question we always ask our technicians when we bring them onto the team. We sort of ask a question about what does a projector do on site? And if they start giving me a really technical answer about, like, it's a digital lens projector and it takes RGB and it like amplifies light like this, I'm like, that's not what it does. What it does is it frames content really well. And I think that's how we, as an industry, professionals, should differentiate our services from competitors. And so how do you think we as event professionals can start reframing technology as a way to sort of reinforce that brand story or that customer or that attendee experience?
I think I use an example of, like, when we have an inquiry, I think a lot of companies, and perhaps you're right with what you said, is they'll explain what they're trying to do. And the salesperson will go, oh, well, we just do headphones and you can use them in this way. Actually, I want to know what is their end goal here, and let's reverse engineer it. Let's reverse engineer it and see if we can create what they're trying to do, even if it is going to China and go, look, our client really wants to do this with the headphone. What's our opportunities? Obviously, there's a cost to everything with these things, but I really like, no inquiry is stupid. Let's hear what they're trying to achieve and see if we can do it. And there's been so many cases of that for us where ordinarily it's like, we don't do that. You know, this is what we do. These are our products. But actually, when you hear you're innovating, you might create a whole new business from what they're trying to achieve. And we've done that with 2 of our products where they were really an idea from a customer. This is what we want to achieve. We've then made it happen and created a business off the back of it. So I think event professionals really have to know what the end in mind is. You know, what is the end in mind for this event? What is the journey? And then we can reverse engineer it and put all the steps in place and all the little ingredients. And I call them ingredients. You know, if you have all the ingredients to make that perfect event, it will be perfect. But I think a lot of not professionals, but I think a lot of professional companies now will just go, here's our offering. And a lot of them are like carbon copies from each other. You know, you go to the next event, even some event packages that we do we want the same as what was in that space. And I think my background of working with, quite wealthy clients in the DJ days, each client wants their event to be different from the one they saw last week. Or we'll use bar and bat mitzvahs, for example, because they go to them every single week, these kids. I want it to be better than the one last week. And they are really unique events, whether that's decoration, the production. And I always say to those clients, and I probably do like 1 a month now because I still enjoy it, a bit of pocket money. But I always say, like, what do you want to create? What do you want the guests to feel when they walk into that room? If you want it to be a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory theme, how far can we go with that, you know, and make it these events an immersive experience? And I think that's a challenge. I think the technology now to make immersive events is absolutely amazing. I think we're in the best period of time, and I think it's only going to get better. But the technology we have now to what we had 10 years ago in terms of immersive events is truly, truly amazing in terms of tech, that I think it's going to be a really exciting 5 to 10 years ahead.
Absolutely. So we always like to close these episodes with some practical advice for our listeners. So, you know, being event professionals in experiential marketing or corporate events, you know, what advice would you give them as like a practical first step to integrating sort of more meaningful technology to differentiate their events and their services?
I think the customer journey is the most important. We invest tens of thousands a year just into the customer journey. We want that customer to feel special, stress-free, that we guide them along the way. And obviously that comes down to your team, but I think you have to incorporate technology in the core of your business, not just what you're providing, but the core of the process of getting them along the line, whether that's with our flashbands, visualization of how they're going to look on the night in the crowd, silent disco curating. We can put a production stage plan together for them, you know, using technology throughout that planning process rather than just on the night. And I think if that customer journey is stress-free, professional for the end client, I think that is the key for a successful business owner in terms of recommendation, delivering amazing events consistently. I think that's the key, being consistent, not just doing one good one and then the next week it's mediocre. Consistency, I think, is probably the most important thing. So if it was advice to a business owner, or producer or something like that, I always say consistency. That, I believe, is the key to success.
Excellent. Well, Toby, thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch?
You can search me on LinkedIn, Toby Burns, or on all the social channels, Google The Silent Disco Company. You'll see everything we do and contact details, and would be more than happy to help wherever you are in the world.
Excellent. Thanks, Toby.
Thank you very much.